Hello everyone, welcome to my channel and you are watching Traditore Traditore. Today I have a whole new concept for you and that concept is based on a reaction. Maybe some of you have seen videos on YouTube in which real physicians or lawyers react to TV shows or movies that are about being a physician, lawyer or surgeon or what have you. And actually today my concept is a similar one. Unfortunately, as translators and interpreters, we do not get many TV shows or movies that are basically about us, and even the ones that are supposed to be about us end up having interpreting scenes that are at most 5 minutes long. And of course that is not to say we do not get any representation in the Turkish television or in any television for that matter. We still have scenes in which interpreters carry out their jobs, and today I will be acting like a gavel to judge, criticize, or even better interpret them. Before I start, I must say that criticizing a colleague for the sole purpose of self-gain in a public domain is very unethical. But lucky me, these are not real translators or interpreters, and I will be just criticizing the level of reality of those scenes. And I must also add that most of the scenes are not between the languages of English and Turkish. So as you know, my working languages are for now between English and Turkish. And since those scenes are not between Turkish and English, most of the time I will be relying on the subtitles and the translator who translated those subtitles, and I will be acting on that. So without further ado, let us get started with different scenes from different TV shows and movies. The first scene that we are going to watch is from The Magnificent Century, and I have my computer here to watch, but you're going to see that scene like here, and I hope that my computer isn't making a lot of noise because it's kind of an old one. So I'm just going to put on my headphones and let's start the scene.
Devlet-i Ali Osmani'nin 10. padişahı Sultan Süleyman Hazretleri'nin tahta çıkmasını Venedik Dükü adına kutlar, geçmişten gelen iyi ilişkilerimizin gelecekte de güçlenerek devam etmesini dileriz.
Okay, first of all, let's talk about the mode of interpreting here. Technically, this interpreting scene could be classified as simultaneous interpreting because as you can see, the interpreter starts interpreting right away when the speaker starts talking. And there is only a little delay, which is generally the case with simultaneous interpretation, especially between the languages who have different syntaxes. And syntax is basically how a sentence is built. For example, in Turkish we say ben eve gittim, but in English we say I went home. However, there is a problem with this scene because as you can see in the TV show, in the scene, that when interpreter starts talking or basically interpreting, the source speech is being muted or rather volumed down. That is to say, the speaker who's speaking is not being heard. And this is good and all for the audience like us who are watching the TV show. That's actually very good for us because we only want to hear the interpretation. However, in real life, there is no mute button or volume down button. So what would really happen in real life is that either the interpreter has to speak really up to dominate the other person's speech so that only the interpretation would be able to heard, or the voices will just mix down and the outcome will be very confusing, so the interpretation will not be as beneficial as it should be. And actually this is why we have soundproof booths and technical equipments like gooseneck microphones, headsets, interpreter's console, and receivers, transmitters, and many other equipments as well. These equipments are used to prevent voice confusion as well as to provide different people who are from different countries with different language interpretation. All of these devices are used to enable that communication. Now, in this mode, I would actually expect a consecutive interpretation mode to be used. Maybe also a whispering interpretation could be used. Let's talk about consecutive mode first. A consecutive interpretation mode is basically like this. The speaker starts speaking up, and during that time, the interpreter may take some notes or they may prefer not to take notes. And after the speaker is done, the interpreter starts interpreting. So you see in this scenario in consecutive mode, the speech is given 2 times. So we can say that it's not really time efficient. However, it is one of the best ways to interpret in cases like this one, the one that we saw in the scene. I don't know why I'm showing the bottom, because my computer is on the bottom, but you're seeing it top here, so I should, I guess, show this. And actually, yeah, consecutive option would be best here. And as I said before, consecutive interpretation mode can be classified into two, and those are consecutive interpretation with notes and without notes. Some interpreters who are really well trained and also who have gained a lot of experience after some time may start interpreting without notes. Maybe sometimes the speech that they have to interpret is about a topic that they're very familiar with, or basically they just are so good at it and they don't even need notes anymore. But consecutive without notes is generally used when the speech is not very long or when it's short. For example, it may go like two sentence, or with little parts or sections. Sometimes it might be long and interpreters may choose not to use notes, and that's actually show an indicator of their experience. So for example, I wouldn't be able to interpret a very long speech without notes. I always use notes because I have very little experience in the sector. So yeah, that is two modes of consecutive interpretation. Now let me talk about whispering interpretation a bit. Whispering interpretation, I think it could be used in the scene. A whispering interpretation, or just whispering by itself, is a mode in which interpreter starts behind the person's ear and basically interprets every thing that they hear. And wait. When I come to think about it, it might not be too good for this scenario, because here you see there are a lot of people, but in whispering interpretation, only a single person is able to hear the interpretation, because you are standing behind someone and just you're whispering. It's not exactly a whisper, but it is referred to as whisper. You see, there is only one person who can hear that. And in that case, all those people except the Sultan would not be able to hear the interpretation, and that is not the outcome that we want. So yeah, no, a whispering interpretation is not good here, no. So I believe consecutive interpretation mode is the best option that we have here. Additionally, let me comment some things about the interpreter here. First of all, the interpreter is interpreting in the first person, which is the professional way of doing it. Some interpreters, or people who call themselves interpreters but who are not professionally trained or educated, sometimes tend to use third person, such as, in this scenario, it will be like, he said that he hopes our foreign relations will be most promising and trustworthy. So you see, we use not the first person, but rather the third person. I'm sorry, we don't use that. We use the first person, but people who are not professionally trained might opt for using third person, but it is not a good way of doing it, and it's not definitely the professional way of doing it. Okay, now we haven't watched the rest of it, so now let's watch the rest of it and I'm going to comment more.
Bu iyi dilekleri kabul buyurdunuz mu hünkârım?
Düşmanlık ve fitne taşımayan her dilek makbulümüzdür. İş ki verilen sözler tutulsun. Adaletimize saygılı olunsun. Yoksa...
Il sultano ringrazia.
Oh wow, okay, we have two very big problems here, and actually one ethical violation, or basically a violation of professional principles. So let's talk about the first problem here. First of all, you were going great in the first person. Why did you switch to third person? I don't know if it was not allowed in the past to speak on behalf of the Sultan or the king. Maybe they thought it is not okay to use the first person because the person who's speaking actually is the Sultan or the king. But as far as I'm concerned, that is not okay. At least in present, that's not okay. If in the past there was such a rule, I don't know. Forgive me, I'm sorry. I don't have any information about that, but in the present, it's not okay. And actually, we have a far more serious problem than that, and that problem is basically resulting from the violation of accuracy, completeness, and also maybe neutrality. Because you see, the interpreter did not interpret the condition that the Sultan proposed. He said otherwise something bad would happen maybe, And an interpreter, a professional interpreter, should not do this intentionally, even if it's his head on the line. And I think it's actually his head on the line in the scenario. I don't know why he interpreted that way, maybe to establish peace or something, but in any way, that is a no-no. And additionally, I don't know who that man is in the TV show, but actually in the Ottoman Empire, there were interpreters. It's very interesting. And actually, before the Ottoman Empire, there were also interpreters. But let's just talk about the Ottoman Empire now. Of course, at the time, they were not called interpreters, but rather dragoman. Basically, dragoman were people or interpreters who were responsible of enabling communication between different languages in settings like war or political settings like this one. So their job was basically to enable communication. And also, many translation agencies' name are either related to or associated with this name today. So it's a very common name for a translation agency to use, dragoman. Additionally, if you're interested about this dragoman concept, I can leave you a link in the description down below in which you will see the International Association of Conference Interpreters, or basically AIIC, is talking about dragoman. And there you can obtain more information. Okay, that was the first TV show or first scene that we were going to watch. And now let us move on to the next one. Okay, our second scene is from Grey's Anatomy. Now let's watch first.
When did your hiccups start?
A few days ago. She doesn't speak English.
Are you her boyfriend?
Her coach.
Tell her I saw her on TV. Tell her I'm an athlete too. I'm a wrestler.
このお医者さんレスリングやってんだってよ。お前のこと誘ってるぞ。
このボイを丸飲みするぐらい朝飯前だって伝えてください。
She wonders how a wrestler got smart enough to be a doctor.
Okay, the concept we see here is called an ad hoc interpreter, or in Turkish we say alaylı tercüman, but it may not be the exact equivalent, so it is good to check. But an ad hoc interpreter is basically someone who is not a trained or educated interpreter, but rather who can speak two languages or more languages and who is also present in the environment. Despite what you may think, using an ad hoc interpreter is unfortunately very common. I'm going to explain later why I said unfortunately, but first of all, let's talk about who can be an ad hoc interpreter. Actually, there is no being an ad hoc interpreter. An ad hoc interpreter is, as far as I know, not a sort of employment type. So basically anyone who can speak two languages can be an ad hoc interpreter. They just need to be present in the environment. And in that case, we can classify ad hoc interpreters as family members or friends, relatives, personnel in the hospital, or as we see in this scenario, apparently even the coaches. Basically, let's say that you are sick and you went to the hospital with your brother and you don't know how to communicate in that language, but your brother happily does. So your brother is acting like an ad hoc interpreter in this context. So that is why we call them ad hoc. Ad hoc basically means tentative. And since there is no criteria for it, basically anyone could do it. However, an ad hoc interpreter, or basically this concept, is very dangerous because let alone their medical field experience or medical terminology experience or knowledge, their language proficiency is even in doubt. And it has been proven by many research that ad hoc interpreters most of the time add unnecessary information, omit crucial information, which is really dangerous for patient care. And also they talk in the third person. As I told you before in the previous part of this video, a professional interpreter would use the first person, not the third person, but ad hoc interpreters generally do use the third person. Additionally, most of the time they use what we call broken language. So some part of that language and some other part of that language, some vocabulary from here and some vocabulary from there, and put them together and you're good to go. No, you're not good to go. This is very dangerous. Moreover, since they do not have information about the medical field, or basically they don't own medical terminology, and since also their language proficiency is in doubt, most of the time they end up using really vague terms for clinical terminology. And any of these events that I just mentioned might cause the patient's disease not to be diagnosed late, diagnosed wrong, and it is really dangerous and actually scary. I actually might add some comment on it, more, but if there is a healthcare interpreter in this hospital, this surgeon should immediately call the interpreter, because he is or she is or they are needed. Before starting, let me explain the concept of healthcare interpretation, or basically who a healthcare interpreter is. A healthcare interpreter is basically someone who has been trained or educated professionally to enable communication between the medical staff and the patient in a medical setting such as the hospitals or clinics. And additionally, this has become very popular recently, especially in our country, due to healthcare tourism. Now, the scene isn't over, there is more, so let us watch the rest of it.
This is probably what's causing her hiccups, a tear in the lining of her esophagus.
Can you fix it?
Yes, surgically, and the sooner the better.
I see. Could you give us some privacy, please?
Yeah, as you can see here, the interpreter is just, the ad hoc interpreter is just talking as he wishes and not interpreting, nor interpreting truly, or not doing anything, just talking. That is also another problem with ad hoc interpreters. Most of the time, they choose to talk on behalf of the patient. So they're not interpreting, and when the healthcare provider asks a question, and that question needs to be interpreted to the patient, but they choose not to interpret, but rather reply on behalf of them. So let's say that I am the interpreter here, and there is a doctor here, and the doctor asks, how long have you been having the stomachache? And basically I'm not interpreting. See, I'm not doing anything, and I'm saying, oh, she's having the stomach for 2 weeks now. But that might not be true. Maybe that patient is, even if it's my family member, he or she might be telling me the wrong information. Maybe they didn't tell me something. Maybe I just know it to be 2 weeks, but it's actually a month, because they were scared. They chose not to tell me the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, actually. And the truth is very important here, so interpretation is required. It's basically a no-no, but unfortunately it's a very common scenario in real life. Please, if there is a healthcare interpreter, do call him, please. I don't know what's going to come next, but not something good, right?
Karev, get the translator up here. Let's make sure she's getting the whole truth.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, okay. First of all, did you hear what she said? Let's make sure she's getting the whole truth. Yes, that is very important. The whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help you God. Yes, truth, truth, truth. Interpretation. You need source, information, bring them together. Interpreter, healthcare interpreter. Yes. Okay, thank you for calling the interpreter, but also ouch, because the surgeon said call the translator here. Yes, okay, let's make one thing clear. A translator is someone who is conveying messages from one language to another in written texts. However, an interpreter is someone who conveys messages verbally or with signs. And when it's with signs, it's called sign interpretation or sign interpreting. And basically, translators translate, and they use, written texts. They translate in written texts, and interpreters interpret verbally or with signs. So it is a very important distinction. It is really very important. I think it has become to a level where it can offend people, because it's about different professions. Those two things may sound familiar to people who are not within this profession, but actually it's like, I think she's a surgeon, right? She is a general surgeon, right? As far as I remember. So it would be wrong for me to call her a cardiovascular surgeon, or I don't know, an anesthesiologist. Yes, an anesthesiologist. So we have to make the distinction, and it's very important. It's not about rank, status, or anything. It's just about setting the record straight, and basically those two things are very different from each other. So let's get these terms quite right, folks. Okay, I just watched the rest of it so that we can save some time. And apparently the ad hoc interpreter, or I just want to call him the coach gets the patient out of the hospital saying that she's okay, she's going to be fine, like something like that. And he gets her to attend another competition, and we saw that the competition is about eating, so it's very dangerous for her to eat at the moment. And at the end she starts puking blood, and I don't want to say it, but I told you so. Basically, in this case, it has become to a certain level, which is really dangerous and life-threatening for the patient. I honestly don't know why we call ad hoc interpreter. I mean, we could just remove the profession's name out of it. I don't know. I would do that, but since I am not to make that call, at least not yet, let's just go with the other scene. First of all, let me explain. This is a scene from Godfather, I think 2. Don't judge me. I know it's a very popular movie series, but I have not watched it, so don't judge me. No judgment here. No judgment whatsoever here. And let us just watch, okay?
Respected gentlemen,
muy respetados caballeros,
allow me to welcome you to the city of Havana.
permítame darles la bienvenida a la ciudad de La Habana.
I want to thank this distinguished group of
Yo
American
quiero darle las
industrialists
gracias a este distinguido grupo de industriales
for
norteamericanos
continuing to work with Cuba
por continuar trabajando con Cuba
for the greatest period of prosperity
por el más grande periodo de prosperidad
in her entire history.
en toda nuestra historia.
That's good, folks. That is good. Okay, that's, I think, the best so far, because it was the professional way of doing it. It was like realistic, like it was in real life. It was really good. So let me just explain what the mode here was. It was a consecutive mode, a consecutive interpretation mode. I don't know if it was with or without notes. The interpreter was looking at something on the table. We haven't seen what it was. Maybe it was notes, but I think it wasn't notes, because they interpreted small sections, like, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to talk to you about dyeing one's hair, and then it was interpreted. So they were small sections, so it is easier to interpret those small sections without notes, but maybe those were notes. It's still understandable. So we have a consecutive interpretation mode here, and I don't know why, but it was very good. It was very accurate. I don't know the message. I don't know the interpretation. I cannot talk on the quality because we didn't have any subtitles here too, and I don't know the other spoken language. So it was good. I don't know why I'm very happy. Maybe because we got some accurate representation of the profession. But thank you, whoever made that movie. I don't have any idea, but thank you. You are loved. Yeah, it was really good. So, congrats. It's always great to see the real stuff. Today we had only 3 scenes from 3 different TV shows, one of them being movie. And I think that's the end of the video. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's the end of the video. So I'm just going to jump into an outro. Okay, if you like this concept, please do let me know in the comment section. And you can also let me know by liking this video, not just liking internally, but also putting likes as a proof. And those things really do encourage me to produce videos like that. And if you wanted this, if you want this concept more, and if you like this concept, you can maybe advise or send me some TV shows or movies with the exact timelines in which there is an interpretation or translation scene. I have, I think, a few more scenes which I'm keeping for other videos. If you want other videos, if you don't like this video, I'm not going to produce any more of this concept, I promise. So I promise, yes, I promise. Yeah, that was the end of the video. If you liked the video, please put a like. If you didn't like it, please put a dislike. It is your right. It is your birthright. So you can also comment on the comment section. And till the next video, take care, be healthy, and just stay with Traditore. Traditore.